Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
I drive the same streets so often I know where the potholes form before the city does. By October the bus shudders over the one on Willow and 3rd, then groans down Maple by the church whose sign rotates through Bible verses and bake sale reminders in equal measure. I'm up at 4:30 on school days. Coffee, keys, a quick shoulder stretch in the dark kitchen while the house breathes sleep. By 5 o'clock I'm at the depot, running a palm over the yellow curve of bus 23 like it's a living thing. Maybe it is, in the way that anything you take care of long enough becomes a part of you. I've been doing this a decade. Kids grow up on my route and wave from minivans later, taller, embarrassed they ever needed me. People like to joke about school bus drivers being grumpy. I don't have the energy for grumpy. I'm a man who counts things. Miles. Lunchboxes. The way the mornings feel different in February than in May. I count money too, but not the way it sounds. I count it in envelopes, dance class, soccer fees, field trip fund, future college jar. The nights I work after the day shift aren't heroic. I stock at a warehouse 2 nights a week, pallets, shrink wrap, concrete, and I run grocery deliveries on weekends if the weather is decent. It's not a martyr story. It's what you do when you have a 13-year-old daughter who loves art, flute, and the idea of engineering camp, and when you're stubborn enough to think you can keep the world from telling her no just because you can take a nap in your car. Melissa used to say I married responsibility the way some men marry sport teams. She'd say it with a smile, most of the time. "Jack, you can sit down," she'd laugh, taking a bag out of my hand that I didn't need to carry. She's 36, hair that does what it wants and eyes that can be kind or cutting depending on the day. She works part-time at the Brookside Market, cashiering and filling in on customer service. She's good with faces, better with names. The regulars like her. She likes being liked. We had a good run of easy years after Avery was born. Not easy like soft, easy like the machine of our days fit. I drove, Melissa worked afternoons so she could do drop-offs when I couldn't, we traded dinners and chars without tallying. Then the numbers started to mean more. Prices went up, hours stretched. I picked up nights and started counting sleep instead. Melissa started saying things like, "You're never home," in a tone that felt like a question I couldn't answer without losing. I'd say, "I'm doing this for us," and she'd say, "For who, exactly?" "Because I feel like a roommate who does laundry." We weren't wrong about each other. We were just tired. The night I forgot my phone was a Tuesday in March. I'd set it on the counter while helping Avery cut a piece of foam board for a science project, bridges and load-bearing designs, and then I kissed Melissa on the forehead and left for the warehouse. I was back by 1:30 a.m. Because the truck was late and the boss knew better than to pay us to stand in fluorescent light. I slipped into bed with a body that felt like a bag of hammers. Melissa was awake, I could tell by her breathing. She whispered, "You forgot your phone," like it was a fact, not an accusation. I groaned. "I'll get it in the morning," I whispered back, and fell through my own answer into sleep. I found out what happened later from Avery, and she found out the way kids shouldn't have to find out anything, by accident, on a Tuesday night in our kitchen. The story is simple and ugly. Melissa told me she went outside to smoke. She doesn't smoke, didn't, I thought, but she'd started buying the slim menthols and saying they calmed her down. I told her once, there are other ways to calm down, and we had one of those tiny fights that doesn't end so much as move into the next room. She went out back. The porch light is temperamental, you have to nudge the base for it to stay on. Inside, my phone lit up on the counter. Unknown caller would have gone to voicemail any other night. But Avery was up late finishing her truss bridge and making the balsa wood behave. She saw the screen glow and did what I taught her to do when she's alone, answer my phone if it rings and it's late, because sometimes late calls are important and your mother is outside. She swiped, pressed the green circle, said, "Hello?" in that careful voice she uses with adults who aren't family. A man's voice said, cheerful and whisper low, "Hey, you coming out?" "I'm already by the house." Avery is not stupid. She's a kid, which means she is slower to assume people are cruel and faster to assume she can fix things. She told me her stomach turned into a fist. She didn't speak. The voice on the phone went on, slotting casual words into a space that should not have held them. You said you'd sneak out for a minute. I don't have long, I'm on my break. Then, when silence answered, softer, Mel? He laughed, nervous. Hello? Avery hung up. She's 13. She did not have a plan. She had my phone and a shape in her chest that felt like falling. She told me she stood there in the quiet for a second, the house humming normal like houses do, and then she ran to the back door. She opened it. Melissa was at the bottom of the steps, hoodie up, a small bright end of a cigarette making a dot in the dark. Avery said, "Mom?" And Melissa startled like she'd been caught stealing our own silverware. I didn't see any of that. I learned it in fragments, the way you learn a song by hearing someone hum it from the other room. What I did see was my daughter's face when she padded into our bedroom at 1:50 and stood by my side of the bed because that's the side where I don't sleep like a dead person. "Dad?" she said. "Dad?" 2 taps on my shoulder that felt like the world tapping. Melissa said, "Avery, honey, it's late," from the doorway, voice high, too high. My brain got to the dock later than my body. I sat up. "What is it?" I asked, because that's the first sentence of fatherhood. Avery held up my phone, screen still lit, missed call displayed like a small betrayal. Her eyes were shiny and steady. "Someone wants Mom to come outside," she said, and then her face crumpled in a way I didn't know it could. 13 is old enough to hide, younger than people remember. She wasn't looking at me, she was looking at a point between us where she wanted a bridge to float into existence. Melissa said, "Avery, go to your room." "This is not," and her voice split on the word not like it ran into a wall. I swung my legs out of bed. My knees cracked. I took the phone. I didn't dial back. I didn't ask Melissa a question. I stood and put a hand on Avery's shoulder because it was the only thing I knew would keep either of us from leaving our bodies. Avery said, in a voice that reached back to when she still wore light-up sneakers, "Mom?" Melissa said, He's a friend from work, his car broke down near here, I told him he had the wrong." She slowed in front of her own sentence like she could see it ending in a ditch. There are lies you can tell a child to keep them from nightmares. There are lies that create them. "Go to bed, Av," I said, keeping it gentle because shouting felt like breaking the last window that still kept the weather out. "It's okay." It wasn't. "You say that anyway." She searched my face like a map. She went. She didn't close her door all the way, she hasn't since she was 5. The new child rules dropped into the room like dice: this is broken, that is ours, this we will try not to bleed on. In the morning, I made pancakes, because pancakes are what you put between a bad night and a school day. Avery ate half of one, then looked at me in the way that makes me want to break gravity. "Do I have to go to school?" she asked. "You don't have to do anything," I said. "But I think you'll want to be somewhere that feels like a day that already existed." She nodded. Children understand rituals better than adults. Rituals are little ladders when the floor is lava. I didn't talk to Melissa that morning either. She moved around the kitchen like someone practicing being a person. She reached for coffee, then didn't drink it. At one point she touched the shoulder of my t-shirt like a familiar prop and pulled her hand back as if it burned. I drove Avery to school and watched her walk the distance between my bus and the door like she was crossing something unpredictable. Then I drove my route as if a yellow machine with children inside could pilot itself with muscle memory and a man who had slept 3 hours could be trusted with anybody's daughters. I was safe. I drove safer than I have driven in my life. I sang under my breath. I told myself I would act only when action was a tool, not a limbic fire. The warehouse sells doorbell cameras by the pallet. I borrowed one from the returns pile, the kind people bring back because they don't like the app. I bought a new one, kept the receipt, kept the returned one in case I liked the colors of the lie better with options. After my afternoon drop-off, I came home and installed it on the front porch between the little brass 43 and the woodpecker hole I keep forgetting to fill. It took 20 minutes. The app told me I had done enough to know more than I wanted. I set the alert to record motion and sound, linked it to my tablet, and turned off the setting that announces, "You're being recorded." Some things don't need a narrator. I didn't tell Melissa. I told myself I wasn't doing this to catch her. I was doing this to know what we were talking about when we talked. The difference matters to me. If I was going to blow up my daughter's house, I wanted to be damn sure I wasn't lighting a candle for a raccoon and calling it arson. The first 2 nights, nothing. Her smoke breaks were 5 minutes, then 10. I could hear the crickets and the faint hush of Willow 3rd. I could hear the neighbor's dog object to the possibility of a squirrel. I could hear Melissa exhale like she was practicing leaving. On the 3rd night, motion, a car, a white Corolla, headlights off, rolled to a stop at our curb at 11:47 p.m. The camera recorded the soft sound of tires on winter sand. The man's voice, closer now, less careful, said, "Hey," through a narrow grin I could feel in the dark. Melissa said, "You can't, this is dumb." She was smiling. Her smile sounds like its own joke. He said, 5 minutes. There are 1,000 ways to touch a person without touching them. In the world of a porch at midnight, the word 5 can do a lot of work. They stood near the railing, in the blind spot I had on my old porch light angle but not on this lens. I didn't see hands under shirts. I didn't see mouths on necks. If you're waiting for me to say the camera caught something that would satisfy a moral jury, it didn't. It caught the slope of 2 bodies toward each other the way magnets do when they're tired of trying to be good. It caught a sound like a soft laugh and a softer shh. It caught 10 minutes stretched into an hour's worth of what's the harm, the kind of harm that tells itself it's being generous by not asking for more. He left. Melissa went inside. My tablet sat on the coffee table and I stared at it like a man waiting to see if his own face would appear on a machine. On the 4th night, the Corolla again, earlier, 11:21. "Breaks are shorter on Wednesdays," he said, like a fact. "You look beautiful." My stomach did what a stomach does. The camera caught the front of his apron when the porch light flared for a second, green, same color as Melissa's store, name tag turned away like a man learned something once. I knew who he was then without knowing his name. 2 years ago I'd seen a kid restock paper towels with that haircut and the posture of someone who has never done a deadlift and needs to. He looked like he liked attention. He had it. I recorded a week. I don't know what proof I thought I was collecting. Proof is a story you tell yourself about how clean the next step will be. I wasn't planning to sue anyone. I wasn't planning to post anything. I was planning to be able to look my daughter in the eye and answer whatever question came out of her mouth with a word that didn't shake. On the 7th day, she asked nothing. She asked if we could make French toast like Grandpa does, and I said yes and went to the store to buy bread that isn't a week old. I passed the Brookside Market. I didn't park. Melissa's parents come over on Sundays for breakfast. It's a ritual we started when Avery was small and thought pancakes were magic. Patricia brings fruit and says I look thin. Roy brings a newspaper and says newspapers are dying. They both kiss their granddaughter like they've been allowed into a house they didn't build but can still keep warm. Melissa asked Saturday night if we could skip this week. She looked tired. "I think I ate something weird," she said, which wasn't even a good lie. "We'll keep it simple," I said. "They'll miss Avery." She nodded in that way you nod when you've already lost the vote in your own head. Here's what I wish I could tell you, that I told Melissa everything the night before. That I put the tablet on the table and said, "We're having the only conversation that matters," and she cried and said all the things people say when they step out of a room with a different weather system. I didn't do that. I went upstairs and laid out Avery's flute on the towel for cleaning like always. Sunday is for swabbing and YOLO YouTube. I got our griddle out. I cracked eggs. I told myself I was preserving a small patch of lawn while the house worked out its fire plan. Patricia and Roy came with a pink bakery box and hollered through the back door like family does. Patricia kissed my cheek and said, "You look tired," because she can say that and make it a kindness. Roy made a joke about the bus. Avery rolled her eyes in the way that brings me joy because it means she still owns her own face. Melissa fluttered, which is the only word for it, from toaster to cabinet, as if speed could make the kitchen less itself. We sat. Syrup, powdered sugar, the way a table full of people makes chairs feel like more than wood. I asked Roy about the stories he was pretending to read. Patricia asked Avery about the art show. We were doing it, we were making a meal exist. Then I pulled out the tablet. I didn't clear my throat. I didn't stand. I swiped, tapped the little thumbnail of our porch, and turned the screen toward the center of the table like I was showing a bird out the window to a child. The video filled with night and our front door and the sliver of street that belongs to us more than it belongs to the city. Sound up, not loud. Melissa looked down without knowing why. The first frame played, a car idling, headlights a hazy glow against the neighbor's hedge. My thumb tracked forward. The figure stepped into the light, the apron, the haircut, the profile that loved the idea of itself. "Jack?" Melissa said, gentle, like I had opened the wrong photo in front of company. Patricia narrowed her eyes the way mothers do when the room starts to tilt. Roy's jaw set. Avery stared at the fork in her hand like it could tell her what adults were about to do to her morning. On the screen, the man said, "Hey!" You could hear him smile. Melissa appeared in frame, hoodie up, chin tucked, a co-conspirator's posture in my doorway. She said, "You can," and then she leaned toward him in that way people do when they are both sorry and compelled. The camera's mic is good, it caught words like break, 5 minutes. I miss you, and he's always at work, that last one like a dart that pretends it isn't aiming at anyone. I let 2 minutes play. Then another 2. I didn't go for the most loaded clip. I went for a piece of ordinary treason that would be recognizable to everyone at the table. No one breathed. The house breathed. Houses don't care. When Melissa raised a hand in the video to touch a shirt pocket that wasn't mine, Patricia's palm landed flat on the table next to the plate like she needed the wood to tell her where the ground was. Roy made a sound in his throat I've heard only twice, when his mother died and when his friend's son went to prison. Avery's face emptied. I stopped the clip. I didn't look at Melissa then. I looked at Patricia, because in that moment I needed an adult older than me to decide if the sky was falling or if I had just made it look that way for sport. Patricia turned to her daughter. She didn't cry. Patricia's sadness is the kind that goes quiet when it gets sharp. She said, in a voice you use when you are telling the truth while also holding a child's chin between your fingers, "You are shaming not only yourself, Melissa, but your granddaughter." It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Melissa made a small noise like a laugh at a funeral. "Mom," she started, and then stopped. Roy stood. He's not a big man, but he has the kind of weight that shifts a room when it moves. He looked at me, then at Avery, then at his daughter. "Enough," he said. It wasn't for me or for Patricia. It was for Melissa. Also for himself. For a house that needed one word to stand up in it. "I'm sorry," Melissa said. I'm sure she meant it. She said it to everyone and to no one. "I'm lonely," she added, which is a fact that can be true and still not justify setting a match to a family. "Jack is always working. I'm tired of being alone." The sentence landed between the sugar and the strawberries and sat there like a wet thing. I didn't make a speech. I turned the tablet face down. I picked up Avery's hand. "We're going to take a drive," I said in that voice that loosens knots. "We'll be back later." Avery nodded, relief and disbelief wagging the same tail. Patricia reached for Melissa's wrist and missed it. Roy put a hand on my shoulder as I stood, permission and apology and solidarity in one small press. Melissa said, "Jack, please," but sometimes please is a rope thrown too late. In the car, Avery stared out the window like the clouds had something to say. We edged out of the driveway with a precision you use when your heart has become some other animal. We drove nowhere, then to the lake. We parked, watched the water pretend to be the whole ocean. "Is it my fault?" Avery asked 5 minutes in, because that's how kids think gravitational forces work. "No," I said. "It is not your fault." She said, "Is it your fault?" The corner of my mouth twitched. "No," I said. "It is not my fault either." She sat with that. Then, in a voice she borrowed from her younger self, "Is it Mom's fault?" I took a breath. "Mom made a choice," I said. Adults are responsible for their choices. We sat until the wind made the car rock a little and I turned on the heat because winter takes a while to leave this state. Back at the house, the bakery box was closed and the coffee was cold and the adults had spread into their corners like people after a fire drill. Melissa was at the sink, crying without noise. Patricia was at the table, hands folded like prayer but not praying. Roy had gone outside to smoke a cigarette he pretends he gave up in '98. Avery went to her room and put on music just loud enough to keep the other soundtrack out. I stood in the doorway and felt my shoulders line up with a choice I had already made a week ago when I bought the camera without telling myself why. "I want a separation," I said. I expected an argument. Melissa turned and nodded like she had waited years to be told what to do. "Okay," she said. Her voice had the texture of a person who just realized the ground is lower than she thought. "Okay." We did the things adults do when they are ending something that still contains a child. We got out a calendar. We agreed to soft rules so a girl could bring a flute and a toothpaste back and forth and not feel like a traveler. We said words like counselor and schedule and Avery first because when you say them enough they make a path. Patricia told Melissa to pack a bag and come to their house for a while. Roy drove her there with the carefulness of a man transporting nitroglycerin. The kitchen was still a kitchen after they left. The pancakes congealed. I threw them out. I kept one for the cat because she doesn't understand anything but hunger and heat. In the weeks that followed, I learned a new set of miles. My route didn't change, but time did. In the morning, I drove kids whose parents might have seen the same video in their heads and didn't know why they were waking up sad. In the evenings, I didn't stock at the warehouse. I said no. I did deliveries during school hours when I could afford to, but nights became something else. I helped Avery with homework. I watched a show I didn't care about so she could explain the memes to me in a way that kept her inside her skin. I went to one counseling session alone, another with her, and then we found one for all three of us with chairs that don't squeak when you tell the truth. Melissa went too. Say what you will about a person, their willingness to sit in a small room and let a stranger hold up a mirror matters. We told the school something small and accurate, that things were changing at home and Avery would need a little grace. Mrs. Keating wrote a note back that said, "You have it. Adults can be decent." They also asked how I was. Men are rarely asked that. I told them I was fine because that is the word you use when your house is on fire and you are trying not to scorch the person offering you a glass of water. I wasn't lying. I was hydrated enough to keep moving. The warehouse manager called to ask if I was coming back to nights. "Not for a while," I said. "My daughter needs me home." He said, 10-4, like an old trucker, then added, "Good call. Money is not a thing you can ignore in a story like this." I looked at the envelopes labeled college and camp and I didn't cry. I moved money like I was rearranging furniture. I added hours where I could. I slept when I could. I wrote a new sentence on a piece of paper: "We are not broke, we are building," and taped it inside the cabinet where the cereal lives so I would see it when I was most likely to feel small. We told Avery the basics about her mom's job friend. We didn't say his name. We told her about boundaries and choices and how grown-ups can love you and hurt you without those two truths canceling each other out. She said, "I hate him," and then, "I hate her," and then, weeks later, in a whisper from under a blanket fort, "I don't want to hate anybody." I put my hand on the blanket and left it there until her breath slowed. She said, "Are you going to get divorced?" And I said, "Probably. 13 is old enough to handle probably." Melissa asked to come by the house the next Saturday to get some things and talk to Avery. I said yes, but I asked Patricia to be there, too. Not because I wanted a witness. Because I wanted the room to have someone in it who could remember Melissa as small and also tell the truth to a woman. Patricia sat on the couch, hands folded like she was keeping something from flying away. Melissa sat on the edge of Avery's bed and apologized without telling a story. "I made a terrible decision," she said. "It wasn't about you, it wasn't your fault, and it doesn't mean anything about how much I love you." Avery looked at her with the surgical focus children use to decide if adults are safe. "Okay," she said. It didn't mean forgiveness. It meant the conversation could continue later without everyone drowning. The man from Brookside tried to call me twice. Unknown number. I let it ring. He texted from a random area code, "Can we talk?" As if I were a manager mediating a scheduling dispute. I blocked the number. I am not a priest. He quit or got fired, I didn't ask. My world is small and full. It does not have room for his voice. People will tell you where your line should have been. "You should have confronted her the first night," one friend said, flaring. "You shouldn't have shown the video at breakfast," another said. shuddering at the intimacy of it. "You should have taken it to church," someone else offered, as if the church had a special closet for these kinds of messes. All their advice is true in a world where they have to live with it. In mine, I did what I could to keep the blast zone from reaching a girl who didn't sign up for shrapnel. Did I fail? Probably. Parenting is a long list of ways you failed softly and then tried again. On Thursdays now, Avery and I go to the park. She tosses a frisbee badly and I pretend to be worse so she can be better. We talk about nothing for 20 minutes and then, out of nowhere, she'll say something like, "Do you think Mom loved him?" And my chest will feel like a room with a piano dropped into it. I tell her the truth as closely as I can without carving her. "I think Mom felt something she wanted to call love," I say. "I think the name didn't change what it did to us." She nods and throws the frisbee into a bush. We go get it. We keep throwing. Sometimes I wake up at 1:47 a.m. and hate how quiet the porch is. I hate that I know what 10 minutes feels like when someone is bargaining with themselves. I hate the Green Apron like it was a country that colonized us. I get up, drink water, look at my daughter's closed door, the way it slots into the jamb like it's meant to, and tell the house good night again, like it can hear me and needs to. The camera is still there. I left it. Not because I'm watching. Because I like the idea that the house can see. In April, Roy said, over coffee in his backyard, "I meant what I said." He meant the sentence at my table that popped a bubble life had tried to keep intact. "You're the father of my granddaughter," he said. "And you're a good man." He looked at his hands. "And my daughter is still my daughter." He said it like it might be taken from him. "I know," I said. "I don't want to be the reason you feel like you have to pick a side." He shook his head. "Sometimes the sides pick themselves," he said. "We just stand where we already were. Summer will come and the bus will be empty and I'll miss the chaos. Melissa and I will file the papers. Our town clerk will stamp them like truth needs ink. Avery will spend a week at engineering camp if the envelopes cooperate with reality. Maybe I'll meet someone one day at a softball game and I'll be weird about it. Maybe Melissa will move to a small apartment that faces a tree and learn to call her loneliness by its name without feeding it cigarettes. Maybe the Brookside guy will grow up. Maybe not. None of that is my work right now. My work is this: be awake at 4:30 and make coffee without slamming the spoon. Show up at the depot and run my hand along bus 23, say good morning to a machine the way you say it to a dog that lives in your house. Drive carefully. Wave at the kid on Birch who always runs late. Hand Avery her flute case and pretend not to notice when she checks twice that she zipped it. Look at her art like it could be in a museum and mean it. Put gas in the car. Say no to shifts that cost more than they pay. Say yes to laughter when it shows up disguised as a bad pun. Tell the truth in small pieces. Build a bridge out of balsa wood and attention and then walk on it together like we trust the laws of physics. If you're waiting for the part where I say I forgave Melissa and we're best friends now, it's not that story. If you're waiting for the part where I say I'll never be okay, step outside with me for a minute. The sky is doing its thing whether you ask it to or not. Birds don't care about my mortgage. The neighbor's dog still hates the mailman. My daughter wants to know if we can get pizza after her concert. I say yes. Of all the words I've learned to use carefully, yes might be my favorite. It's the one that keeps us pointed toward a future where the house is smaller, the table is different, the video stays in the tablet, and we're all still here, eating, breathing, counting the things that matter. Thank you for listening my story. If you want more raw, real, and gripping stories like this one, subscribe to the AEN Stories channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.